meeting to order. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Calling of roll.
Ms. Wilson? Mr. Norris? Ms. Dees?
Present.
Mr. Morris?
Here.
Ms. Wager?
Here.
Mr. Thompson?
Here.
Mr. Loudermilk?
All right. Mr. Loudermilk had a prior commitment and is not here tonight. We'll start with the first reading by summary reference of proposed ordinances and resolutions. Number one, ROC 2021-016, Resolution 2021-03. That is Duke Energy Renewable Services, LLC, 10-year real and personal property tax abatement. Got it out. Number two, ROC 2021-010, Resolution and Reallocation 2021-01, Salary Ordinance 2021-11, Commissioners, out of series transfer. One second. Number three, where am I here? ROC 2021-015, Resolution and Reallocation 2021-02, Parks and Recreation, out of series transfer. Number four, ROC 2021-011, Salary Ordinance 2021-07, Lit and PSAP. Add 3 shift supervisors and 3 assistant supervisor stipends. Number five, ROC 2021-012, Salary Ordinance 2021-08, Additional Appropriation Ordinance 2021-06, Beagle County Courts, amend job description and rate compensation. Number six, ROC 2021-013, Salary Ordinance 2021-09, Salary Additional Appropriation Ordinance 2021-07, Building Inspection, amend title, job description and classification. And number seven, ROC 2021-014, Salary Ordinance 2021-01, Additional Appropriation Ordinance 2021-08, Commissioners, amend job description, classification, and FLSA status. All right, got that. Any questions from the council? We will move to public comment. Is there any comment from the public? This is our first open meeting, I guess, so were there any email correspondence at all? Yes. Oh, yes, there is. Sorry. Number 8 is ROC 2021-015, encumbrances from 2020 budget. Auditor review and accept. Okay. Sorry, didn't see that. So is there any comment from the public at all? All right, we'll move on to communications from elected officials, other officials, or agencies of the county.
I guess the communication I have is encumbrances. You find them beginning on page 4 of your packet. At the instruction of the Board of Accounts, we are to present this for informational purposes. We encumbered a total of $6,275,000 $960.41. No action is necessary to be taken.
I think every year we have an issue with some sort of encumbrances. Mr. Effner, do you have something to say about these?
I had correspondence with the with the supervisor of the Board of Accounts and the state examiner, and his response to the question of do these need to be approved by the council was the council has already approved the appropriation. They do not need to be approved again. They were approved during budget time. It's just Well, I'm going to proceed with the instructions I have at this point.
Anybody have any questions about encumbrances? Is this something that needs a ROC number to move forward? 2021-015. My copy. I have it. Anything further from any council members? Any other communications from elected officials, other officials or agencies of the county? All right, we move on to reports from committees.
None.
There are none. Ordinances related to appropriations. Number one, Resolution 2021-03, ROC 2021-16, Duke Energy Renewable Services, LLC, 10-year abatement, 10-year real and personal property tax abatement.
Okay. Thank you. Okay if I remove the mask for this?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Yes, thank you for having us. We're excited to be here today to talk about this project. And before we get into it too much, just for the purpose of correcting the record, on the meeting minutes, I believe this item should say Duke Energy Renewable Solar instead of Duke Energy Renewables Services or Renewable Services. So the company presenting this before you today is Duke Energy Renewable Solar, LLC. So my name is Tyler Kuhn, and I am a project developer. By title, I'm the business development manager for our renewables portfolio in the Midwest. And in that role, my job is to develop large-scale solar projects across the Midwestern United States. We're excited to bring to you a project, a proposed project that would be built it actually straddles two counties, both Vigo and Sullivan County, and are here to talk to you about that. And the resolution, of course, is for a property tax abatement. But before we get into that discussion, I'd like to give you some background on this project, which we've titled the Hoosier Jack Solar Project. Next slide. So the first distinction I'd like to make, since we are all very familiar with Duke Energy in this area, is that I'm not here with the utility company. So I'm here with Duke Energy Renewable Solar, which is a separate business entity under the Duke Energy Corporation. We develop projects all across the United States and not tied to the utility service territories that Duke Energy may operate in various states. That said, we are all under the same corporate umbrella. So if you're thinking about the Duke Energy Corporation, yes, that's us, but we're not here representing the utility company, which is Duke Energy Indiana. So Duke Energy Renewables operates utility scale solar and wind facilities across the United States. And we are one of the larger owner-operators of renewable energy generation in the U.S. We have about 1.5 gigawatts of solar in operation currently, and close to 3 gigawatts of wind projects in operations currently. Next slide. Okay, this slide that I'm showing you here shows the location of Duke Energy Renewables portfolio across the U.S. And so once again, to drive home, you'll notice that most of our facilities are not even located in states where Duke Energy has utility service territory. Like most of the solar production in the U.S., it's heavily weighted in the southern United States, and particularly the southwestern United States, which is where solar has really grown up in this country. But the wave is coming. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's growing tremendously, and we're going to see a lot of solar growth in the Midwestern United States. Ultimately, if you're going to have solar energy producing power to supply our businesses, our homes in this area, a plant in Texas isn't going to do us any good. So we're going to need more solar projects and large-scale solar facilities in this area to meet the growing demands of energy, and specifically renewable energy into the future. So you'll notice on this map, Duke Energy Renewables does not even have an existing facility in the state of Indiana, but we're intending to change that. This project I'm talking to you about tonight is one of the projects we have in development in the state right now. Next slide. So the specific project location we're talking about is on the county line close to Farmersburg, so immediately or close toward the east from Farmersburg, if you're on the Sullivan County side. About 60% of the project area is on the Vigo County side of the line and 40% in Sullivan County. This project would be built on land owned by a single owner. Farmer Jack is the owner of the land. And the project is entirely built on reclaimed strip mine. So this is what we would consider a clean brownfield site. So the land is reclaimed. Of course, it's being used now for agriculture and other purposes. But it's a great site that we're very excited about. We think it's an excellent location for a solar facility. Next. So this project is a 175 megawatt project. And this, just for reference, provides about enough energy to supply power to the equivalent of 35,000 homes. So a very large-scale project. We're using the latest technology, which will be bifacial panels on single-axis trackers. And I can go into plenty more detail on this later, but I'll try to keep it very high level for this meeting. The total land footprint is about 1,500 acres. We are currently shortlisted for a power purchase agreement. And so what that means is one of the important parts of getting a project to the point where it's viable and we're ready to pull the trigger on construction is that we enter into a long-term power purchase agreement with a buyer. Now those buyers could be a utility company or the buyers could be commercial entities. You know, any company out there, Amazon, Facebook, Ford, Polaris, any company that has energy demand can be a buyer of renewable energy. And those companies are driving a lot of the renewable energy growth these days. So I can't state who we're in negotiations with at this point in time. We will reveal that as soon as we can. But there are quite a few examples of entities that could be buyers for a renewable energy project. This is a project that would begin construction in 2023 and begin operations in 2024. Next slide. Project like this brings a lot of benefits to a community, and first and foremost is the tax revenue that we bring to an area. This project, even with the property tax abatement that we will discuss today, will bring about $43 million of additional, in other words, new tax revenue over a 35-year life of the project. And it's a substantial increase in the tax revenue generated on that land currently, the land that's assessed as agricultural land. The project will also bring hundreds of jobs during construction and a few jobs long-term. A solar project is not a large generation of long-term jobs, but there will be 2 to 4, depending on what other projects get built in the region, 2 to 4 permanent full-time jobs operating of, well-paid solar technicians operating at this location. And of course, it will be a steady supplemental source of income for the local owners, and that land, those dollars also come into your local economy. Next slide. Additional benefits that you can think of when you think of a project like this coming into your area. First of all, the project does a lot to meet the comprehensive plan goals of Vigo County by developing former strip mine land, by bringing clean renewable energy projects to the area, and the opportunities for economic development that I've discussed previously. Duke will also seek to be a good local neighbor in your area with a generating facility of this magnitude in your local area, which means partnering with schools, partnering with other nonprofits, seeing ways that we can utilize and leverage the Duke Energy Foundation to help support your local area and what's important to this county. And I'll show some examples of things we've done just in the past year at some of our operating facilities. This is a mega trend, and something important to realize that, there may not be a lot of solar jobs out there today, but if you think about 10, 20 years down the road, there will be many jobs created in the solar industry. And so having a facility like this close in your own backyard, creating great educational opportunities, really brings a lot of benefits where you can kind of tap into a mega trend, not only in our country, or not only in our region, but our country and the world right now, is the renewable energy growth wave that is coming across the world. Next slide. So in this slide, I just want to show some examples in some of the areas where we operate, just in this past year that we have been involved in the local communities. And again, this is just a snapshot. Our intent will be to come into this community, know and understand the needs here and how we can help. But just as some examples, we've been very active in education programs across many of our locations. So that's tours for students, it's putting on job fairs, it's helping provide curricula for an energy program at the schools, science fair funding, scholarship funding, helping in Chromebook funding, for example, in one of our projects, participating with a 4-H, supporting the local fire department's ball field development. So again, this is just some examples of ways that we've been able to be impactful in the communities where we operate. Next slide. Okay, this type of land use, and I'll just give you a very high-level view right now, is actually beneficial for the community. And by community, I'm talking about that in many ways. The local community, meaning the people that live there, the wildlife that's there. But it's a project where the land is actually preserved and enhanced. So this is a very unique type of project where virtually everything that goes in the ground when we build the project will come out of the ground at the end of the project. And during the life cycle of the project, what the land is going to see is essentially a managed prairie. And I won't go too much into this because I'm going to turn the time over next to Tim Hayes to talk about this in more detail. But ultimately, we intend to be a good neighbor in the area. We won't be introducing any hazardous wastes. We won't be introducing any noise, any glare, any extra additional traffic, at least once construction phase is complete. And once again, at the end of the project life, the facilities will be removed, the land will be enhanced, preserved, and returned to its current use. So with that, I'd like to turn the time over to Tim Hayes, an environmental specialist with Duke Energy Renewables, to talk more about the community impact of a project like this.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm the environmental director for Duke Energy Renewables. Born and raised right over here in Brazil, Indiana, still live there. And basically the siting, permitting, environmental impact, environmental compliance all kind of falls under my area. And I've had the pleasure of working from California to Wyoming and Pennsylvania, but it feels good to now work, in the next county over, right? And I was pushing our developers like Tyler to look for these clean brownfields, right? Sites that have been used in the past, but yet they don't have the historic environmental contamination and such that many more dirty brownfields might have. And we just feel like this is a great land use with that reclaimed mine land. It's good farmland, but maybe not great because of that past mining experience. And one thing we're trying to do with these large-scale solar projects is to try to fit them into the landscape in a way that's non-intrusive to wildlife and to the neighbors around here. And one of the benefits here is there are no homes or houses on this property, so you're not having a impact to neighbors there. And we're going to integrate, like Tyler said, vegetation that's compatible to the area, maybe not fully native vegetation, because we do have to maintain it in a low state. And if you know anything about the growing season here, things grow pretty quick when you get 40 inches of rain and live in this climate. So, vegetation will be a challenge, but we're going to go in from the front end selecting the right types of plants and vegetation mixes that will minimize, hopefully, that maintenance, and at the same time provide some habitat for wildlife. We'll use a wildlife-friendly permeable fencing around the site instead of the chain link with razor wire. We won't use that. We want to let wildlife pass through that fence as much as possible, because you'll end up with a bunch of rodent problems if you keep the predators out. So our philosophy is to try to keep it as blended and balanced as we can from an ecosystem standpoint, so you're not managing some pest species down the road. So those are just a few of the items that we're looking at on this, as well as other projects here in the Midwest. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nathan, who's going to get into the details around the resolution. Thank you. What's your last name again? Hager. Nathan Hager.
Ladies and gentlemen of the council, I'm Nathan Hagerin with Taft, Stentinius & Hollister. I'm Duke Energy Renewables Solar property tax attorney, here to talk today about the abatement proposal that they've asked me to present to you. I did draft and prepare and send over the abatement proposal as well as a draft resolution for your consideration. So that is my handiwork, and if you have any questions about it, certainly ask me. I do want to summarize. Duke Energy Renewables Solar has asked to seek from the council an inducement for this project, a 10-year straight line, standard, traditional, plain vanilla abatement. Okay, we're not going under some of the new code provisions that may allow super abatements, longer terms, or any special treatment as far as packaging it in any other type of agreement with the county. What they are proposing is for Pearson and Linton Township, the property on which the solar would sit would be designated as an economic revitalization area by the designating body, the council, and to allow the investment of the solar facility, the capital investment on that property, to receive the benefits of that 10-year straight line abatement. And in return, the benefits to the county would be property taxes on that property ramping up through the term of the abatement and then coming fully online in year 11. And again, this project is intended to be a 35 to 40 year project. So significant capital investment improvements going in. Now with the solar project, one of the things to talk about when we're coming for an abatement, in contrast to some other large capital investment projects, although the construction phase of the project may have a few hundred folks coming in for a short period of time, the primary benefit to the community is the capital investment improvements to the personal property in the county, increasing the tax base for those townships. What it does not do necessarily is bring in hundreds and hundreds of employees specifically for Duke Energy Renewable Solar or attendant there. Although in this case, we're expecting 2 to 4 permanent employees for maintenance of the solar facility on site. Again, for the $100 million investment, $95 million of that is in the solar facility itself, the personal property itself. The other $5 million or so would be site improvements going into the property. That's an expectation. Obviously, with a projected time period on a proposed project like this going out a couple of years, the cost may go up or may go down, but that's an approximate expectation of the company at this point. So the benefit to the community, Tyler mentioned $43 million overall in property tax split between the counties. For Vigo County, that would be about $29 million over the life of the project after the proposed abatement that Duke Energy Renewable Solar has suggested. During the period of the 10-year abatement, it would be approximately about an $8 million personal property tax abatement and about a $5 million paid in of additional incremental property taxes that the county would not otherwise see. So that's just a quick summary of the abatement proposal that you have before you. Again, it's a draft, it's a proposal. The company is willing to answer any questions as this is a sunshine meeting and we want to make sure that the council has fully had a chance to view this. And I understand, and again, thank you for your patience. I understand many of you may have just received these materials.
Thank you.
Thank you. And, now I'm going to turn it over to Rick Berger here with Duke.
So let me hit the pause button for a minute. You've got some questions. Let's go ahead and shoot some questions to the team.
I have a question.
Go ahead, those comments. Yeah, so Rick Berger. So if you would, let's just kind of pause for a minute, and if you got any questions to any of the Duke Energy team here, then I'll have some closing comments and we'll be done. So,
I have a question.
Councilwoman Wager.
Mr. Berger, there was a comment about a Duke Energy renewable facility. Where would that be located?
The Duke Energy Renewables facility I refer to is the solar project in discussion.
Itself?
So
That
if you
would-
want to go back to that map.
Would
but
that be
yes,
the field?
that is the project that we're talking about. So
Okay.
this field you see here would be essentially covered with solar panels.
Right.
Now when I say
And
covered,
there's no other facility?
correct.
That's it.
This is the facility.
That's my question.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Councilman Moore.
You were talking about the life of the project and returning everything back when it's done. So you'll take all those panels up and leave?
That's correct. Yeah, in fact, we're
Ah.
obligated to do so with the landowner, and we'll also be obligated to the county to make sure that we do that.
How long will that span be that it'll be there?
So the expected life of a solar facility is 35 to 40 years.
Really?
Now we could, with the landowner, if we mutually agree, we could extend that for another 35 to 40 year period.
I see.
So we're talking temporary, yes, but very long-term temporary.
Okay, that confused me. Now I
Sure.
understand. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and the project will be operating as far as land-wise on a long-term lease.
Right, I
And perhaps I
understand.
didn't clarify that.
Thank you. I yield.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Thies.
With the other locations, I actually just drove by one of these over the last week I was away.
Okay.
With the locations, is it very typical for you to get a tax abatement from the counties or locations where you have?
It
Is that
is.
a common thing?
It is very common, yes. Yeah. And we didn't go into much of the reasons for the tax abatement request, but ultimately, a project like this operates on the open market. Okay, so like I said at the beginning, we're not with the utility company. We're not going to rate base any improvements here. So we have to be cost competitive with any other renewable energy project out there. And so yes, it is very common for renewable energy generation projects to receive tax abatement to help make sure that the project can deliver within the market the energy at the market price.
Okay, and could you kind of, because I followed that you guys are like a separate
Sure.
type of system, but could you clarify that a little bit more? So you're all under the Duke umbrella?
Yeah, Duke Energy Corporation, think of that as the parent company.
Okay.
And Duke Energy Corporation has 7 or 8 different utility companies that are each a business, and the one here locally is called Duke Energy Indiana. So that's the corporate name of the utility that operates across the state of Indiana. Duke Energy Renewables is just simply another business entity under the Duke Energy Corporation. We don't operate, we actually have to have a bit of an iron wall between us and the utility company because the FERC regulations mandate that. But we don't have any inside information from the utility company. So while there are some services, for example, environmental services and even government and community relations services that can be shared across those, you know, there's a lot of information that we cannot share between our company and the utility company that would give us some type of an insider advantage. So it's very carefully watched.
Okay, and then one other question, because it kind of goes along with that. I know Mr. Berger has done a lot representing Duke in our own community with grants and involvements and things like that. The programs that you're talking about, like with the education, or that you've done any other states and locales, is that then under your umbrella, or is it be something that Mr. Berger would continue, or is it?
Correct.
Okay. It's kind of where I was going, okay.
An influx of new funds, correct.
Okay,
But I suspect Rick will stay involved one way or another.
okay, well, as an
In this area.
educator, I was just curious, because, yeah.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn, to whom and how will you sell your power?
So the power will be sold through a long-term power purchase agreement, typically 15 to 20 years. So it's a commitment that says any power produced here will be bought by that entity. Now, the power is delivered directly onto the transmission line. In this case, it is a Duke Energy Indiana transmission line, but that doesn't mean that that's the entity buying the power. So typically, we operate with a virtual power purchase agreement, which means that an entity buying the power doesn't even have to have a facility very close to the location. The transmission system operates as a market where energy is essentially traded from one region to another region. So the benefit is your local community will receive the generating benefit of having a facility here. In other words, the electrons generated will come into your local community for the most part, because the electrons flow to the nearest users. But your local community is not paying for this project. Someone else elsewhere, most likely, or they may have facilities and a need here in the Terre Haute area as well. But they will be paying for it and receiving a credit. So it's a virtual exchange of energy, is the way these are typically done.
Well, and will that power be maintained in the United States, do you anticipate?
Oh, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
it'll definitely be utilized within the United States and to meet demands in the United States as well.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Wilson?
Hi.
Hello.
Is this location the only one? I mean, are we competing with other locations as far as if for whatever reason we don't give you this tax abatement? Is there somewhere else that you're looking at as well?
We are looking at other locations. We hope they're not in competition because the demand is so strong that we are looking at other locations, including another location exclusively in Sullivan County. So that we do have a project nearby, but also a couple of other counties, further away counties in the state of Indiana, where we're developing projects right now. We don't think they'll be competing. Maybe to answer your question one step further, we hope the tax abatement is granted, but if it weren't, then we may be forced to look at other locations for this project, including possibly shifting more of it into Sullivan County.
Thank you.
Anything further? I've got a couple questions.
Sure.
As far as the construction, do you plan on using local labor for that?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we intend to use local labor to the extent it's feasible and available. By that I mean that you have that the skill set is found locally to meet those 200 jobs. We don't have the engineering construction contractor in place yet, so all the decisions around the local labor have not been made. But it's always our intent to advertise locally and hire locally to the extent practicable for a project.
I think the other one you had already answered. This does not affect any residential areas out there?
There's no residences in close proximity. As we look around the area, we don't see a single home that would even see this facility from the residents, which is unusual and really a treat from a development perspective. At least we're hopeful that that will minimize, opposition and concern from neighbors that we often see in projects like this.
Okay.
One more question. There's no high structures going to be erected out there?
Only in close proximity to the transmission line. So where the transmission line already exists, which if you look on this map, point of interconnection is actually about a mile north of where the main project facility will be. And so we will have a overhead transmission line running from the facility up to that point of interconnection. But across the area that you see in red on this map, there won't be any wires above ground, and really any facilities taller than, say, 12 feet within the footprint of that boundary.
Thanks, okay.
That's a plus already on the side. We have a transmission line that runs right through this property here. We gotta find that interconnection. It's there.
Okay.
My last question is, there was a recent rate increase. Does this help with that in the future?
Probably not. And again, I work for Duke Energy Renewables, and so I can't speak to the rate increase. I only know that it happened. I was not involved at all. And we're not in communication, again, across those things. That's one of those lines we can't cross from one business to another. Unless Duke Energy Indiana chose to be the buyer and buy the power here, I don't see how those two things would really be related.
Let me kind of answer that too. Sure. There's a little different sides.
Yeah, you.
Yep. I should have this down, Rick Berger, okay. Two different parts of the company here. So anything they spend on is not going to affect a ratepayer out there, so please understand that. They stand alone, but they are under one big umbrella with Duke Energy. So, I've had that question asked to me a lot. Well, how's that going to affect my rate? It will not, because they're separate identity under the umbrella.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, one more. So the two, I think in the work, and you mentioned a couple jobs that would be added as a result of the facility, other than the construction jobs. Will those be based here in Vigo County, or are they jobs that'll be created tied to it, like maybe at a different office? Like, will those people be from Vigo County? Well, you can't say that they're from, but will they be working here?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I want to be careful. We don't necessarily dictate where the employees live, but the facility, the O&M building would be in Vigo County.
Okay, thank you.
And so, yeah, likely it would be a local person that lives in the county or close by.
Close by.
Steve, you got any comments? Tara, what did you see?
Just briefly, I had the opportunity to meet Tyler probably 2 to 3 years ago when we first came to the community, and it's unusual to have an investment, obviously, in excess of $100 million. But I would also add that for those of you who are familiar, the transmission line they're tying into is the 138 kV line. It runs along the south side of the industrial park, and it goes many counties to the east. So in theory, this project could be located anywhere along Duke Energy infrastructure. So that's where the competitiveness comes in. And I think the fact that this is a very unusual site, it has one property owner, it's reclaimed land. Frankly, for reclaimed property, it's difficult to attract your typical industrial use because of concerns about heavy loads and things like that. So solar energy is just ideal for that. And there's no adverse impact to neighbors and things of that nature. So I think it's a unique opportunity, and I'm very much in favor of the project. Thank you.
Rick Berger. Okay, so I've got a PowerPoint in 40 minutes. Tim, if you can help me. No, I'm teasing. No, just a couple minutes wrapping up here. I've been at Duke Energy 44 years, going on 44 years, and this is probably the most exciting thing I see that in my time that I can bring and help in the community. As, we do a lot of things in this community, but this is one that's really exciting project in my heart here that we're doing. Proud to be a partner with Greg Gibson. It's his property. It's the old Peabody property down there. So I think we're taking this here land and putting it back to some good use. Here's the things I see that's ideal on this site, and some of you have heard it. You have one owner. You have reclaimed land, and we're utilizing a brownfield site. We're displacing nobody. This is very unusual. As Tyler says, usually there's homes and you have that. Enhance area wildlife, Tim hit on that. I promise you what he's saying, and I've seen what he's done throughout the United States. It's going to be nice. And, another thing, too, it comes back to Steve's point. That's an industrial park down there that Greg has, too. And some industries are drawn to renewable energy. He has the methane coming off the hill down there, so that's one thing. Now we're going to have, hopefully, a solar farm there, too. And the last thing I think I mentioned, we aren't going to be building any lines to do this, only, internally here will we do that, or a little outside of it, but nothing like, building miles of transmission line and disrupting other people's lives on the transmission line. So, on behalf of the Duke Energy team, Tyler, Tim, and Steve, thanks for your comments. Nathan, thank you too. We think it's a great opportunity. We appreciate you listening to us today. Hopefully, just take under advisement and we'll go from there. Any other questions, we'll get out of your way.
Can you put a couple of those panels on my house? So you
Yeah,
just
that's
hook that-
right.
Thank
Hey,
you,
I
Rick.
will say this, on our side of the business, we do have residential people out there, so.
Not a salesman. All
Yeah, I
right,
know it,
Adam.
I know it. But no, we really appreciate it, and I'm proud of you. I'm going on my 19th year here. I've sat up there in that position where you've been, and, I appreciate what you do for this community, too. Any other questions?
Thank you, Rick.
All right,
Thank you.
All right, we'll get out of your way. Thank you.
All right, we will move on, and I need to jump ahead. Salary ordinance, we're going to skip a couple, and then come back to the rest. Salary ordinance 2021-08, ROC 2021-012, Beagle County Courts, along with number 7, additional appropriation ordinance 2021-06, ROC 2021-012, Beagle County Courts.
Thank you, council members, for having us today. My name is Michael Lewis. I'm judge in Vigo Superior Court Division 6, acting chief judge here in Vigo County. I have Judge Mulligan, Judge Roach, our system administrator, Joe Labrie here. We have court services director, Bill Watson, and also our chief public defender, Gretchen Etling, here supporting this. We are requesting a salary increase for our system administrator from a base salary of $43,531.96 to $50,580. And this request is, as this COVID has been going on for the last year, we have come into new technology that we really do not plan on letting go of once they tell us we can get close together and don't have to do remote jury selection anymore. Zoom, our recording systems, we plan on keeping the Zoom for forever because we're going to have the new jail down there that's opening next year. We're going to have 2 courts in there that our system administrator is going to be responsible for recording equipment in there, along with video equipment in there. In addition, he helps out as needed the clerk's office. Even though he's the court's system administrator, he helps out the prosecutor's office to some extent without violating any ethics rules, and he helps out occasionally with the sheriff's office. It's not just taking care of computers. He's in charge of our programming. He's in charge of setting up our video equipment for our trials and making sure that those are running smoothly, and that will continue past COVID. I have the other judges here to give updates and updates in support of this, and also updates on what we're doing with the courts with regard to our I think we all passed out the pretrial services, I think criminal rule 26 a little bit. So I'd like to have Judge Roach, Judge Mulligan come up also. And Bill Watson.
The other thing on the administrator's position that I would like to add is, as we have seen most recently, we can't afford to continue with a laissez-faire attitude about cybersecurity. It is very expensive, as you know. And so a lot of his additional duties have been addressing that as well, including a recent training module that was sent around to follow up with the court employees, make sure everybody's doing it, make sure questions are answered. So as we increase our awareness and steps to protect the court systems, those duties are expanding as well. So I just wanted to add that to the presentation.
And I would add as well, last year was the first year I did Adoption Day, which was remote using Zoom, and Joe Labrie was very important in doing that. We were able to connect over 100 people, maybe 125 people on Zoom who were able to participate in Adoption Day and having kids in different rooms by TV. So it's really required us to adapt and cooperate this last year. And I think Joe's been a big part of that. In addition to that, I have a trial starting next week. Joe's been at all my pretrial hearings. He's going to be setting up, because we're picking a jury off-site at Operating Engineers, and he'll be there through the entire trial to make sure technology works as it should. So,
In addition, we can't afford to lose Joe. There have been offers to him recently, and if we lost him, if we lost him as our system administrator, I think our courts would be in deep trouble for at least a while.
he makes us look good, which is hard to do.
So, and we didn't want to take up too much time from the council, but we thought we'd go ahead and take the opportunity to give you some updated information on the pretrial services program that we're running, because we're all very excited about the numbers we're seeing. But before I get into that, if there are any questions about the salary ordinance, we'd be happy to answer those.
I do. Judge Mulligan, if you would explain, you said you had a trial and the jury set up off-site at Operating Engineers. So how does that work?
Well, I picked a jury at the Grotto 2 weeks ago, and Joe did the same thing. We take all of our recording equipment, set it up there, pick a jury that afternoon, and then we bring it all back to the courtroom and modify the courtroom so that the jury is sitting in the gallery, everything's turned around, and we live stream the trial to our state website. And that seems like a simple thing to do, but it's not. It's a big deal.
Now
So he's working on Sundays at night to make sure all the equipment is working.
Is that happening in all the other counties in Indiana?
No.
I don't know.
That's really groundbreaking, isn't it?
Well,
I mean,
I'd like to think it is. I had one of the first trials in the state, actually, after we went back to resuming trials last July. And it's not just one location either, because we have to use 2 off-site locations. And whether the trials go or not, they still have to be prepared to go. And so he's making sure that 2 locations are prepped and ready to go. Now, most trials don't go, but when they do, things have to go right.
And one of our sites now is we're going to try to utilize the courthouse. I have a trial in a week and a half where my courtroom will be set up with the jury. Then we will use Judge Mulligan's courtroom and possibly Judge Roach's courtroom for the extra people in addition to the 14 that are in my courtroom. And Mr. Labrie is responsible for setting all that up so they can connect and see what's going on in my courtroom to see the judge.
And maybe we're assuming you know some numbers that you might not. So we call typically for one major felony trial 75 jurors. So if you have to separate 75 jurors by 6 feet front to back and 6 feet side to side, you can't do it in court. So that's why we're doing it off-site. We've done it at the school corporation conference room. One was done at the Grotto.
Girl Scouts.
Now we have the operating engineers and the Girl Scouts.
I did it one at Girl Scouts.
And now we have operating engineers that's allowing us to use their hall every Monday from now through May. So as long as we're still under these restrictions, we need that space to spread out. So the first part of the trial is the selection. We send all the potential jurors to these sites, spread them out, do the health checks, ask them, do the selection there, and then the trial takes place back in the courthouse because we can space them 6 feet apart in the courtrooms themselves to do the presentation of evidence.
And then stream the trial
And then
for the
we have
public
to,
to see.
we have to stream it because it's a public proceeding, which also took care of that as well. We also left off that he's responsible, now that we have pretrial court services under one roof, he's also responsible for probation computers, pretrial service computers, making sure that they're talking to the courts like they need to be and talking to each other. And he's a one-man show. We don't have three like the county does. Obviously, the county has more ports of entry, but it's a tremendous job.
And you know, we're using Title 4D for Wednesday. Judge Bruno was the senior judge, and she's doing the Chins cases by Zoom, all of which Mr. LaBrie set up with the Public Defender's Office and Juvenile Court, and set up all the equipment in Juvenile Court and CASA. So I guess the courts
It's
reach.
also, yeah, it's also worth noting that what we're asking for is under market value. That's why we're here, because while we can't pay in the private market, we all know that's the bane of government service, right? We still don't want to lose it. It was much easier to transition to him from our last one because we didn't have all this going on than it is now if we would have to transition to somebody new. Which would be hard. Very
Well, Mr. Watson, did you have that thing set up where the people could come and kind of report at the courthouse? Is that working? I mean, this.
The kiosk system is working, and Joe was involved with pre-trial with the vendor that was utilizing that. Joe was involved in the discussion, how that was set up, work with the probation department.
Well, and what did they do? I mean, how did it work?
It's working great. We have several people on it. You can see some of the data that we handed out. Obviously, COVID affected that when we had to close down the building for a period of time. They couldn't actually come into that kiosk system and get it built. So it's been, since enhanced that opportunity, the ability to do that again through their cell phones and some things again, technology, put in place additional to help Joe working with our vendor.
And a little bit of preview to give you a heads up. We are interested in that space that will be the former jail because we can save money on jury expenses. And we can save money by calling one large pool for all the courts as opposed to 4 and 5 pools for 4 and 5 courts. So if we can move to one large pool and do it by text and do it by web and do it by whatever else, like Allen County uses, they use a text message notification system for their jury selection. But we don't have the space for it. We don't have the space to say 100 people report here, and then if there's a trial going, we'll take the first 60 out of there. So there are ways to save money on postage, sending out the jury questionnaires, by doing it electronically, which he would have to take on. But he has investigated the Allen County model in particular, but we just don't have the space to do it. So just as a heads up, maybe asking for some kind of space like that. But it would save money.
Councilwoman Wilson?
Just to clarify a little bit, this is something that you would see ongoing even after COVID?
Yes.
You would still
Yes.
continue this process?
We
People
actually had video court for the jail prior to COVID, but the technology, I'll be polite, was not very good.
Minimal at best.
I could talk to my daughter in Italy by FaceTime a lot clearer than I could talk to the jail from my courtroom just across the courtyard. It did not work. With the Zoom technology, whatever technology the jail's going to be able to put in for our courtrooms down there, it's much better.
It's
It's more secure. You cut down on manpower, bringing the inmates over to the jail. You cut down on opportunities for family or victims' families to interact with defendants while they're on the chain and in the courtroom, which has been, we've had outbreaks in the courtrooms before as well. So the video has a lot of benefits, which we will absolutely take even after COVID.
In civil trials as well, civil uses as well?
At least for jury calls, it would be used that way also.
Yeah.
So we aren't calling it a ton of people.
Yeah.
We've been moving towards it.
Joe, they're probably gonna want you to come up here.
Yeah.
So like the digital evidence, being able to provide things on screens, nothing different than PowerPoint.
Right.
We were using that to an extent pre-COVID, we've really enhanced it, because you can't hand anybody pieces of paper right now. And so we've really enhanced it, where civil, that's never gonna go away, neither is it gonna go away from criminal. These are definitely all things. The COVID forced the state Supreme Court to rule on some of these technology features. I doubt they're gonna back them up thereafter, kind of thing. I mean, once you have something that makes life a little easier, you really don't wanna get rid of it thereafter, kind of thing.
So we've been able to put for trials 2 screens in the courtroom, and then we also have an additional screen behind the bench in all of our courtroom. And so everybody can see a document that's offered without having to pass out the copies to everyone. Everyone can see videos. We've even had witnesses in California testify as to a live video that was played on all of the screens. So that's not something we're going to back with.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a couple questions. The documents that you're seeing, are they sensitive for the most part?
Some of them are, like in criminal cases, some of the documents are reports from technicians from the state.
Mental health, juvenile.
Yeah, some of them are, some of them are not. All of the documents when used in a trial are all in closed network. We're not broadcasting those to the network in any way, shape, or form. Any of them that are being used for hearings, things like that, things that are public record, some of those get streamed if they're being shared through Zoom. Some of them are just closed to the network. So it just varies. It just depends on the case, the nature of the case, where it's being done.
And we actually had to figure out, Joe had to figure out how to basically seal off a child victim's testimony from streaming to the public. So everything that was taking place in the courtroom stayed in the courtroom, and then we were able to switch back on and then broadcast the rest of it to the public.
And the cameras that are live streaming the trials are kind of aimed over the jurors' heads, so no one sees jurors on video call.
We'll have the trial starting Tuesday morning once we get the juries. It's fun.
It's through the state, Indiana
The
State.
state website.
State website.
You can click on any of our hearings and criminal hearings in
Shows
the morning
each
as well.
county in blue lit up. Click on it.
I've got, are you picking up the volume okay? Whoever answers these next week, you might step up to the microphone. Prior to COVID, we had a computer virus, correct?
Yes.
What role did you play in that?
I was on the trial that day.
How much detail do you want? We could start with, I came in that morning at 8 o'clock. I left at 4 o'clock the afternoon the day after, 36 hours straight. I was here in this building with the IT department, helping get the servers up and running, things like that. Previous to my position with the courts, I worked for the IT department here. So the data center, all the virtual equipment, all that stuff I knew very well. I helped build most of it with the previous director. So it made sense for me to be here helping them get that going. Once that was going, I was back to the courthouse, juvenile center, get those machines back up. I mean, as you know, we had the servers and everything up within 36 hours, but we still had end users not working for 2 weeks, give or take. I mean, we had to prioritize where we had our manpower, how we got machines backed up and running. Each department needed at least a couple machines so each department could function. I was in the courts getting at least those started. IT department was here getting their stuff. So at the start, there was no separation of anything. We just all worked together. Once we were functioning, that's where we separated off and started handling our own departments from there.
And the court's recordings are important. They have to be kept.
Yeah, those got shut down instantly. I can give you more details, but.
No, that was good. I appreciate it. I've got, does anybody else have from council?
I haven't had a day off this year.
This year?
Correct. I took 2 days off in between January and October of last year. We stopped trials because of the COVID second wave. I jammed all my time in right there. The dilemma that we currently have, I would have taken time off for spring break, but the IT department is no longer a 3-man department at the moment. They're 2. And one of them had already taken some days off. So before our trial in June, I'm going to try to take a few days off. We don't typically know if we don't have a trial until about Wednesday before. So I have approximately 2 days to figure out if I can take a day off, and if so, what am I going to do with it? Just sit at home kind of thing. So we just plan days off wherever we can jam them in at the moment. I don't know. Sounds terrible, but it's really not that bad. I like what I do. I like where I work.
Okay. My last question would be for Judge Lewis. This request, can it be mandated by the judges?
It probably could, but none of us want to mandate anything. It's an ugly word. It's judges using their bully pulpit to get something through, and we'd just rather get along with everybody and just work together. Yeah.
Fair enough. Any other questions from the council about this?
With the change, because there's been so many changes, especially in the last year, and you're seeing that a lot of these will stick around, do we need more clarification to like the job description, or do you feel the job description?
He updated his
He did
job
update it?
description,
Okay.
yes.
And so that would be included? The technology, okay, I just wanted to clarify that that was there.
Okay, did you have an update? Like to speak with?
Well, we just wanted to briefly take an opportunity, since I know that you all appreciated the last time we gave you an update on where we were. We just finished the first year of our pretrial services program in COVID. So brand new program, brand new rules, brand new pretrial service officers here, make it work. Oh, and by the way, you can't meet anybody face to face. We have to do it by Zoom or by WebEx, however you can meet them. So we put together another report through the end of March, just to give you an idea of our numbers. And as I started to say earlier, we're really pleased with how we started. This is our first year in a challenge, under challenging circumstances. But if you look at the numbers, the two things that, the purpose of bail, there are two purposes of bail. Public safety, make sure you're keeping people in that need to be kept in and aren't committing crimes, and they're showing up for trial. That's the purpose of bail. If you look at those numbers on there, those who are target defendants who did not commit a crime before their case was closed, if you look at the risk categories, it's 98, 97, and higher. So that percentage of those people did not commit a crime before their case was disposed. The other is show-up rate. Are they failing to appear, or are they showing up for the court hearings? Those numbers are also in there. And they're also similarly high. And what we would expect, the differentiation between low risk, medium risk, and high risk. So those are important numbers. I think the volume is also important. Another number I think might draw your attention to is the number of days in jail. I think if you remember this jail study that was done several years back, we were 3 to 5, if I'm remembering correctly. The ones that are in this program, the days in before they are released, the average is 1.1. So we are getting them assessed within 24 hours of book-in. We are running assessments 7 days a week. So we're getting the assessments done within 24 hours of book-in. That information is getting to the courts, and those decisions are being made much earlier than they were before, which is really key. So we just wanted to take an opportunity, without going through all of those numbers, to give them to you, and if you had any questions about it.
Yeah, Bill Watson, I'm the Director of Court Services. Real quickly, one of the programs, or some funding that was provided to community corrections for this coming year that we're currently in, was money for a dual diagnosis program within the work release center itself. For the longest time, the courts, the correctional system in the county is bogged down with the people that we call dual diagnosis repeat offenders. They constantly cycle through the system. Jail, the courts, community supervision, back to the jail. The problem is, these are people that we put them in programs and services that we truly weren't getting them what they needed quickly enough to keep them from going back to jail once we put them in our community programs. Then the courts are seeing them again. What do I do with them? Do I leave them in jail longer, try a program they've failed? Some cases they go to the Department of Corrections and they come back, start all over in the system again. I say they ride our merry-go-round. That's what they do till they take a stop and get off and get back on. Funds was provided by the council. It was over $500,000 for treatment services, additional staff, evaluations, medications. And I can tell you, we got off the ground running in February. As of today, we have 18 people in that program. We had received 20. 2 of those people had to go back just simply for the fact we were not a hospital-type facility. Their needs were much greater than what we could do for them. But these are people that we've gotten out of jail. They've been evaluated for mental health, substance abuse usually within 3 to 5 days after hitting our program at the most. Some of them are getting them within 24 hours. They're getting mental health evaluations, substance abuse evaluations, and they're starting on needed mental health medications the same day we get them evaluated. By the end of that day, they've started their medications under the supervision of a psychiatrist and a forensic nurse practitioner. These are people that I've dealt with for a number of years here, and I can say they've gone back into the community. These people are getting jobs. Before, a job wasn't even possible for some of them that I've dealt with. They didn't even know where they were going. But we have social workers that are spending a lot of time with them. We get them on insurance as quickly as we can. HIP, Medicare, Medicaid, any of the insurances, we're doing that right away to pay for their medical costs that we can bill through those avenues, saving on the dollars that the county has provided for us. So right now, it's very early, but I'm really excited with the results because we're seeing people that have been through our programs numerous times that you're actually seeing progress with. Judge Mulligan and Judge Roach we talked today about a few of the people that we've received in our program and some of the things that are going on with them. And they're major changes, but it's because we're being able to provide them needed services immediately versus a waiting period of time. And that's been a huge difference with them that we can tell, for sure. So I hope to have some more numbers for you at a later point in time, but the initial with it is very exciting for all of us. So thank you for the funding for that. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Real quick, before you leave, would it be possible for you to share a copy of the handouts for the files?
Yeah, I gave the council all one, and I have one without
Yeah.
fancy graphs.
Oh, okay. I'll share it with them.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good news about that program, isn't it?
All right, we will get back on track.
I'll share this with
Okay.
Number 2 and 3 on the agenda, resolution of reallocation of existing appropriation 2021-01, ROC 2021-10, and salary ordinance 2021-11, ROC 2021-10, commissioners. This is transfer request.
Are we doing building inspection first? No, we're doing the.
No, we're doing the transfer.
transfer.
request.
Oh, you don't.
That's all you got?
So you may have Commissioner Chris Weitzer, you may have noticed that Jared, Joel, or Terry Mossett might be here assisting Michael Wright. So we're taking existing salary that's left over that Michael Wright does not get paid, and we're putting that into a contractual services or legal services line. I'm not sure which one it is, Calissa. Legal services, we're just taking that money and putting it there to pay Mossett Law Firm. That's about it.
Any questions from council? Nope.
I do want to add that they put in a request for a transfer out of the payroll lines, and because the position for the county attorney is no longer a full-time position, so we're making an amendment to the salary ordinance to reflect that as well. So that is salary ordinance 2021-11. On the next line, so you'll see that on page 28.
I'm sorry, I thought Commissioner Morris was going to be here to tell you this, so I don't know where it disappeared to.
Oh, it's 71, I think is page.
28 was
Yeah, it's 70.
parks.
72, I'm sorry. It's on 72. But that amends the job description from full-time to part-time, and amends the compensation from 83,351 to 27,045.
Which is
That-
Michael's part-time compensation.
Yeah, and this is really what should happen so that the auditor has the authority to pay that.
Okay.
Thank you, Melissa.
Well, cleaning it up.
Any further questions from council? All right, we will move to number 4 on the agenda, resolution of reallocation of existing appropriation 20. Skip 3.
Parks and Recreation,
No, he did 3, that
up
was
at the
the salary.
top.
Right. You combine those two, didn't you?
Combine those two, correct?
Yeah.
So up next is resolution of reallocation of existing appropriation 2021-02, ROC 2021-15, Parks and Recreation.
Three. Okay.
Nice wheel.
20. Oh,
Racing, I explained, huh?
This thing is ridiculous.
Brenda, you can help him.
I have so many tubes hanging off of me. Hold on a second. Thank you.
Sorry.
So this is the last time we'll be asking for the reallocation of these funds. We have no intent on paying somebody to mow property again in West Terre Haute. We're transitioning into a shop facility in West Terre Haute. We're building that way. This is getting that money into contractual services to be able to mow our properties and clean those porta-johns, things like that in West Terre Haute for those parks. But we're working right now. We do have the facility in our possession to be able to transition into that shop building now. So hopefully through this season, we can clean up that facility, get ready, get the people in place, get the mowers in place, and save that money. When we started that a couple years ago, it was not as costly. It's gotten more and more costly, and obviously now justifies the need for that part-time and full-time person to be over there and start mowing, taking care of those facilities. Having park staff over there is a large benefit as well. There's all kinds of other things that need done other than just mow grass at those park facilities. So just moving our money around to be in the right place. Any questions?
Any questions from council?
Nope, nope, nope.
Nothing further.
All right.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you need anything, get a hold of me anytime. I just sit around all day now.
Do wheelie.
All right. On my agenda, number 5, salary ordinance 2021-07, ROC 2021-011, lit PSAP. I will, Vicky.
Good evening, Vicki Oster, Vigo County 911. And I have, last month when I came here, requesting that the position be put from a supervisor to a dispatcher, I had an amount in there, and after talking to some of my people and thinking about it, realized that no one was really interested in that. So I have now come to ask for additional monies that we should have in our budget, still not asking for any additional money to be put into our budget. But this is for the 3 assistance to be given an extra $1,000 a year. And in order to do that, I had to ask for additional money for the supervisors because that would have made them making more than the supervisor. So I'm requesting additional stipends for 3 supervisors at $1,500 a year.
Complicated, isn't it?
Yes.
Any questions about that part from the council?
Nope.
This was going to, like you said, the original $500 was going to, if you would have requested anything more, they were going to make more than your supervisor.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. Anything more from council? Any questions? Nope. Self-explanatory?
No.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
And we did 6 and 7. We will move to 8. Salary ordinance 2021-09, ROC 2021-013. This is the building inspection. I guess it's connected with the additional appropriation ordinance 2021-07, ROC 2021-013, building inspection.
Yo. Okay. So Carrie's been with the county for a little bit of time now. She's kind of viewed as a secretary at this moment of time, but she's more of an administrative assistant, so we're asking her to get a little bit of a raise. The job duties specifically as a secretary or an administrator are quite different, and that's why we're asking for the raise. I don't know if, did you guys get a copy of this that has the updated duties on here?
Okay, on 41.
I mean,
Well,
I don't
it
want,
starts on 41, I think.
I can read them all to you, but I think you guys can do
We
that
start
too.
on
That's page 44,
They're in
isn't
the
it?
book,
Yeah.
they're in the book.
Yeah, but 41 is the reviewed one, so the whole section.
Updated.
So when the new commissioners came in and Commissioner Kearns as well, we wanted to kind of redo building inspection and get it a lot more involved in the county as a whole. The first person anybody calls speaks to Carrie, and she's usually the last person people speak to. She deals with payroll, and she deals with people calling and complaining about anything you can imagine in the county. She's really good at de-escalating situations. She's good at getting people answers. She's good at saying, this isn't a county problem, this is a city problem, here's your phone, or here's the phone number, call them. My short time as being commissioner, I have pretty well talked to her almost daily, if not every other day, and she does a great job, and I would really appreciate if you consider this raise for her. And if you have any questions, you can let me know.
Any questions from council?
Nope.
Keeping with past practice, is this something that should be sent to WIS?
The commissioner said don't send anything else to them. They're not paying anything else.
Not paying anything else?
Cancel the contract. Is that right? There's the commissioner's asking.
Commissioner Brendan Kearns, District 1. I can attempt to answer that, if you're okay with that.
That'd be great.
Been a lot of discussions over the last 4 or 5 years about WIS and the importance of their services, and they have provided a very valuable service during their time with us, in that we didn't have a human resources professional that really understood the market in our area. So we relied on these out-of-area consultants, who I think are probably 200 miles away from where we are, if not more, to let us know what we should be paying people in Vigo County. We are very fortunate that we were able to hire a human resources professional, Kara Wright, who does join us this evening. Kara has a very strong background in human resources, and we've given her tasks to look at positions as they come up when there's pay equality issues that do arise, to do market research within Vigo County
to see whether or not we are paying a fair and equitable salary or wage. And we strongly feel, we being the commissioners and several council members, that WIS has provided great service for us in the past, but I think that we are good where we are now with the professional staff that we have, where we can handle things internally. I will share with you when the time comes to talk about the administrative assistant position, kind of how that process works. But I don't want to give you a long-winded answer, but that should cover that. Now, as to Councilwoman Wager's response about the contract, we have not renewed a contract with them, but we also, my understanding is, are operating under contract from 3 previous commissioners that was signed, and it's a continual rolling until notice is given contract. I will share with efficacy that we are comfortable now with thanking them for their past relationship and moving on without them. But that was a conversation that we were hoping to have collectively in a different forum with you as a true partnership in this process to make sure that our employees are paid equitably and fairly.
So we are no longer using them?
We haven't said anything to them for quite some time. Is that correct? Yeah, it's kind of an odd arrangement, too. The point person has always been Calissa, your council administrator. And I don't know if Connie was involved that much with that. Connie's no longer here, and, isn't here to answer that question. But, when I was on the council and people came to us for personnel committee requests to increase pay, the process at the time was we would request that department head to communicate with WIS, and then they would then in turn communicate with the council administrator, Calissa Miller. But now that we have our HR professional in place, that's kind of a step that we feel isn't necessary and, could result in a significant cost savings. We looked at some past invoices. We're spending on average, I think, $1,200 plus for a salary review that we can do in-house with our own people that live here in Vigo County that understand what the market pays in Vigo County versus somebody quite a ways away that's looking at other counties that may not be, the same situation we're in.
Questions?
So we're not under contract with,
We do have a contract. But
when does that expire?
Whenever we give them notice, or they give us notice.
And we're going to do that.
I think in the past, a lot of government entities relied on consultants, and consultants do give an expertise that is extremely valuable. But as we become more proficient, and if we have grown, we've figured out ways to, build within.
So you'll address that soon? I mean,
if you guys give us a thumbs up right now, a phone call will be made tomorrow. Sure. I mean, this has been a long discussion. I know Councilwoman Wager, you're almost your first day of being in the council. We talked about the importance of doing this within. And now we have a new council for the most part who hasn't been involved with WIS. I think this is a great opportunity to move forward. We're fortunate to have one of the top human resources professionals within Vigo and surrounding counties with us. It's kind of a big deal. If that changes, we may need to revisit this, but right now, we've got a good thing going, and very effective too. That could, again, result in significant cost savings if we keep our reviews in-house. Our unbiased reviews in-house.
I also think, Commissioner Kearns, that the savings could be enough to hire, 3 or 4 people a year.
At least 1 or 2, sure, yeah.
Well, at the rate we've been paying people, it could be 3 or 4.
It does result in you're constantly being asked for salary increases, and I'm going to be doing that here shortly, as Commissioner Schweitzer has just done, and many others before us. If you take $1,200 on average per ask, it does add up pretty quick. And these asks are not going to go away. Ideally, what Kara and I have been working on almost for 2 years now, or a year and a half. I'm bad with time. We've been looking at our salaries. We recently ran a spreadsheet on all of our salaries by classification, not by person. When I look at pay increases, I don't look at the individual. You know, there's all kinds of sayings about how indispensable we are. We have to look at the position and what that position should pay. So we ran a list, and it was, I forget, 200-something positions. Does that sound right? It's unfair to ask on the spot. But what I wanted to do was just do an adjustment to bring things up to market value across the board. That would help control this. It would help control these discussions of, hey, you know, somebody's being lured from another company and we need to throw them an extra $5,000 to keep them. I mean, that's exhausting.
But
And, you know, and those of us that are in business, we know, I mean, sad reality, well, I don't need to go on that. But we are working on improving our pay system, our employee handbook system, so many processes that we've been looking at for the last 2 to 3 years. And I see a lot of forward momentum going. Having this discussion right now is kind of a big deal, that we're actually talking about this. I'm doing my rambling thing. I've picked up on that.
Yes, you are.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
And I'm gonna.
It's your job to hit that gavel.
I'm going
and
to jump
stop me.
right,
It's
well,
right
I'm going
there
to stop
by
you right now. Let me just say.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm answering your question. All
Hold
right.
on just a minute. I just want to say this.
Sure.
I do think that we owe it to the elected officials to show them some respect and let them have some say about the people who work in their office.
Amen.
And as we saw with Joe LaBrie, these things change, you know, on a dime. And you know, you have to grow with how the job changes, you know. And for people to have to come in here and beg for money and justify it and be intimidated and all kinds of other things that happen, it's ludicrous. That's no way to run a community.
Did we do this? Yeah. Oh, hi.
The one thing I would like to say is it appears to me, the most people who come and talk to me about their salaries and what they make, is that when these were created, and I wasn't here and I'm not judging, I'm just saying from what I see, is that they handed these to people and said, fill out your job description. People can't do that.
That's
People
right.
don't know what they do every day. So you have somebody over here who filled theirs out really well, somebody over here fills hers out really terrible. They're not paid equal even though they do the same job.
Right.
That's what we find across, and these were done a long time ago. I mean, it's been
A long time ago.
but that's the problem. You see two people in 2 jobs that are doing the exact same job, they're not being paid equal because one of them did a better job of filling it out. The other person thought it, or her supervisor or whatever said, oh, don't worry about it, they're going to take care of that. Well, that's not what happened. That's not what appears to happen. Again, I wasn't here. I'm just telling you from what people bring to me, that's what's happened. And that's why you're hearing people say it's not fair, this person gets paid more money, because it wasn't really looked at across the board. They were just handed things out.
You're absolutely right, and you know, and people have been, many people have been unhappy ever since. It's just it's a never-ending tale of woe.
What we'd like to get away from is the need to have elected officials, supervisors, directors come and say, hey,
Shouldn't
this
happen.
is why our employee needs to be paid. You know,
Yep.
we hear this all the time from the sheriff's department. Why do we struggle so much with hiring jailers? Well, we don't struggle with hiring them. We
hire with
the struggle is
keeping
keeping
them.
them.
Yeah.
In 911, Vicki's still here. Vicki deals with it too.
All the time.
Because we are training grounds for the federal prison, you know, and that's
And
fine,
even the
sort of.
state, yeah.
But what we need to be cognizant of is turnover.
That's right.
That is your greatest expense. It's not the annual salary. It's the fact that you hire somebody, they're here for 9 months and you got to start all over. You have insurance that you're providing. You've got taxes on top of that. You've got investments in their perf accounts. It's quite an expense to lose an employee. So if we're averaging $5,000 to $10,000 per employee that we lose in additional costs, look at how much that's hitting us in the end. And we can actually quantify that data for you, I think. But you're right there, right? Yes. We could give an estimate. But if we bring the salaries where they need to be, then we don't have as much risk as somebody trying to take our employees from us, or for us to be a training center for them to be somewhere else. And you look at the windfall that we've had in finances recently, and our revenues actually come in a little higher than what we anticipated this time last year. This may be an opportunity for those adjustments across the board, and that's something that all of us would like to see. Fair and equitable salaries across the board, so we wouldn't Not so we wouldn't have to have these discussions all the time, but we would be where we need to be.
Well, we could have actual fist fights, Brendan.
That's fine. That's fine. No, I mean, I've been advocating for higher salaries from day one. and
I've been
I
on
think
the
a lot of you
budget
have.
committee every year, and if you want to know how actually cruel it is, that is where you really know.
No,
It
I
is
know.
just absolutely makes you cry.
Yeah,
It's the worst.
I've sat in a few of those meetings. They were painful. But we do it for the right reason, I guess. Yeah, so. Does that answer the question, whatever question it was?
I think you did about 15 minutes ago.
Hey, listen, I tried.
I appreciate it.
I can go sit down now until the time.
Well, one of you guys are going to be back up here.
Yeah, I'll be up
Any further questions about that? All right. Number 10 on the agenda, salary ordinance 2021-10, ROC 2021-14. And it's associated with number 11 on the agenda, additional appropriation ordinance 2021-08, ROC 2021-14, commissioners' salary ordinance. Administrative assistant, I guess.
He's back.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Brendan Kearns, District 1. So, this is an awkward one. It's awkward because we advocated for this increase last year on 2 occasions. In your handbook, you'll see paperwork tied to that. You'll also see where it was denied. I don't think it was ever denied. I just don't think it ever
Never
moved
came before
forward.
us.
Yeah. There was a package that we put together on bringing salaries where they need to be, and we focused on the Commissioner's Department. We looked at Human Resources. We looked at IT, which is a direct report to the Commissioners. We looked at our administrative assistant's position. We built our cases to increase those salaries. And it wasn't done by the individual. We're fortunate that we have very talented people in those positions. We want to retain that talent for sure. But what we looked at was market value. And it was based off of an internal concern. There was a concern that a position was being paid far less than a position that is considered to be almost the exact same. And then when you look at the job descriptions, there were similarities there. So what we did was, we had Kara, and if you want to share what you did, that's fine, or I can try to make it. Thank you.
Good luck.
She did a market survey. Kara is involved with our local human resources group, SHRM, which is Vigo and surrounding counties. And she got on the phone and she called and says, hey, these are the jobs that we're looking at. What do you guys pay for similar positions? And that's where we got our value. It wasn't from a consultant from 200 miles away. It was here. So we advocated for those increases and it never moved forward. And why, I still to this day have no idea. So what we're asking you today is to consider bringing up one of those positions. That being what we're calling the administrative assistant. The individual in that position is Tammy Allen, who I don't need to tell you how good of a job she does. She's phenomenal, and I'll leave it at that. Unless you want to ask me, I will gladly share. But the pay for that position falls way below comparable positions within our own house. So the goal is to bring it up to where it needs to be. That when you get down to it, that's it. Is there anything you wanted to add on that, Kara?
No, other than the fact that her job description from the time this was put into effect to now is.
To the
totally
mic.
different.
Come up to the mic.
I'm sorry. What she does now is not what her old job description is. In the packet we sent the old job description and a new job description. There are so many more things she does than the person who originally, she wasn't the person in this position when it was originally made. She does way more than that position did. And her confidentiality has to be utmost. The things that she does is not just with us. She deals with the mayor. She deals with other people, a lot of organizations. She just has a lot of responsibility that was not in the old job description. So.
And Earlier, there was a discussion about the malware attack, that when we had the virus that came from the courts and then took everything out. Tammy was instrumental in handling insurance claims on that, which was a significant amount, I think 600,000 range. That was not part of her job description. That falls into the last thing on the job description, all of their duties as assigned. And it seems like nowadays with a lot of our positions in government, since we've been reacting to COVID and we've been reacting to malware attacks, that has been so important. That's where that talent comes from. The ability to have the right people to think on their own to move this county forward is key. Having the salaries where they need to be, fair and equitable, retains that talent. So, looking at this particular position, we are advocating again to get that to where it needs to be. And that figure is not based on emotion. That figure is based off market value done from our human resources director. And I think I've said the same thing probably 5 times now in just a different manner. And Calissa has affirmed. 6.
Sure. Specifically for Tammy, when you think about the Vigo County Capital Improvement Board, it's made up of 7 members from different entities within the community. But ultimately, Tammy's the secretary for that. She pays the bills, she schedules the meetings, she arranges where we're going to have the meetings, she sets all that stuff up, and she's not compensated for it anyway. So that's another specific added duty that is quite a bit, really. So.
A lot.
Any questions from council? My question is on the job clarification review form. It's got her current pay per hour, and then the proposed pay is per year.
Yeah, because we're looking, we feel it should be with an exempt
Annual
position.
salary.
Should move to an
What is her
exempt.
current salary?
It's on there.
20-something an hour. The 2063.
265.
2065 an hour. She literally is a 24/7. Well, we all are. We're all on call
37.90.
when you get down to it.
37,580. That's at 1,800 hours. Yeah, we
We're
have 1820 in
1820.
the county.
We reach out to her when needed. She does the same. We're scheduling appointments for Monday on Saturdays.
I've talked to her many times on her days off, vacation, called her in Florida,
We were on vacation last week. We were just somewhere else. I mean, and that's part of the job. That's part of being a public service. And, well, with Tammy being our right-hand person, she's right there with us.
You
And
took her on vacation? That ought to count for
yeah,
something.
so, but I have personally throttled down my ask for her out of hours, just, well, there's a lot of reasons for it, but she has her own time, and she doesn't need to be interrupted when she's at home. But sometimes things have to move forward, and we have to get things in motion, and I've never run into a situation, I know you haven't either, where that's been, where she said no. Again, I was focusing earlier, though, on the position, not the person, but we are very fortunate to have the right person in that position.
Anything further, Rachel?
Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly on the agenda, the encumbrances. So we've given it ROC 2021-015, encumbrances from 2020 budget. You spoke earlier, Mr. Bramble. Any questions from council about the encumbrances? Everybody understand what they are? And were we waiting on clarification on?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
See you.
Any questions for Mr. Bramble?
Nope.
Okay. With that, take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Those in favor? Say
Aye.
aye. Opposed? Means adjourned.
Aye.